High above the forest floor, atop an ancient branch crowned by the gold of late autumn, a single small leaf lingered, still bright and swaying in the gentle air. All around, the tree's other leaves, once emerald companions, had already drifted down with the passing winds. Every gust had sent them tumbling. Some spun quickly, as if chasing after distant secrets on the earth below. Others took their time, gliding through the air with the bittersweet grace of those who are reluctant to say goodbye. Yet among all this quiet departure, one leaf remained, suspended alone, fragile, solitary, but not at all sorrowful. This little leaf was no stranger to change, nor did it fear what might come. The wind, when it wailed or whispered, never seemed threatening. Rather, it was a friend, playing gentle games among the branches. Rain was not an enemy either. Instead, each drop felt like a story shared from the sky, and the leaf listened with quiet joy as the world transformed around it. Even while it hung alone, the leaf felt the pulse of the forest, alive with distant birdsong, the skittering feet of squirrels darting across rough bark, and the secretive murmurs of clouds gathering before a quiet rain. From such a high perch, the leaf could see the world in all its seasonal glory. The treetops blazed in fiery reds and bright oranges, a rolling sea of color shimmering in the pale sunlight. Forest paths were woven with blankets of yellow leaves, carrying the footfalls of deer, foxes, and wandering children. The sunlight itself seemed softer now, shining through the thinning canopy in thin golden ribbons, bathing the world below in a gentle farewell from the sun as the season turned. In those bright moments of day, the leaf basked in the sun's warmth, its edges curling with pleasure at every caress of light. The entire tree, and all the world below, seemed to hum with quiet energy, alive with the promise of another golden afternoon. The leaf smiled, not with lips, but with the contentment of existing, sharing in the universe's slow turning. Every sunbeam was a greeting, every shadow a quiet embrace. Night fell softly, as it always does, the silver light of the moon spilling across the forest with cool serenity. The leaf would sway gently in the nocturnal breeze, a subtle lullaby drawn from the shivering voices of thousands of leaves, both present and already fallen. Sometimes, an owl's distant call would echo through the trees. Soft, mysterious, old. The leaf, wrapped in the hush of midnight, would close its dreamless eyes and let itself drift into peaceful slumber, held fast by the branch's steady arms. But not every night was entirely dreamless. Some nights, when the moon was round and bright, the leaf found itself floating in a quiet, beautiful dream. In those dreams, it let go just for a moment and stepped free from the branch that had always held it. Weightless, it danced upon the air, spinning and gliding in slow, endless spirals. It felt the world slipping past, sky, branches, the shimmer of moonlight above. The rustle of other leaves gathered beneath. A soft carpet of yellow and orange, welcoming with gentle whispers. The journey downward was not frightening or sad. Instead, it was peaceful, an exquisite pause, like the moment between an inhale and an exhale. In its dreams, the leaf always landed softly amidst its friends, at rest at last upon the earth. It never fell because of forceful wind or drenching rain, never out of fear or necessity, but simply because its time had arrived, gentle and measured. The farewell was tender, as if the whole world sheltered the tiny traveler in its arms. There was no sense of ending, just transformation, the next step in a long and wonderful story. The leaf felt light, lighter than air, as if every memory and sunbeam within it shone outward in gratitude and wonder. Morning would come, as inevitably as the seasons, and gently wake the dreaming leaf. It would greet the new dawn without sadness or longing, content in the knowledge that its dream belonged to a distant tomorrow. a moment yet to arrive but certain to come. Until then, there was nothing to fear, nothing to mourn. On its branch, high above the yellow forest floor, the leaf continued to watch, to listen, and to shimmer in the light. It carried within itself the memory of summer, the green laughter of young leaves, the chorus of frogs by the pond, the dazzling bursts of sunlight after rain. It remembered the days when the whole tree was alive with color and the nighttime filled with the music of crickets and the soft rush of wind. But it did not cling to the past. Instead, it cherished every moment of the present, each new color, each new sound, storing up the world in its delicate heart. As the days grew colder and the air grew thin, the leaf sensed a quiet anticipation in the forest. The hush before the coming winter, the patient waiting of roots deep below, of branches left bare and ready. Yet the leaf felt no hurry, no regret. If anything, it loved each new day all the more, holding closely the gift of being, the miracle of its own small perspective. The leaf understood that its life was part of something greater, a story written not in words, but in the endless cycle of renewal, rest, and return. It would one day join its friends on the ground, to nourish the soil, to cradle new seeds, to return its own life-giving spark back to the roots from which it came. But until then, it simply lived, patient, joyful, unwavering, and wise. And so, through sun and rain, wind and quiet, the little leaf remained. It watched the world, smiled at the morning, listened to the forest song by night, and dreamed its gentle dream. It knew, with a calmness as deep as the earth itself, that when the time was right, it too would let go. Not in sorrow, but in wonder, falling softly into the embrace of the world, secure in the wisdom that every ending is but a new beginning waiting to unfold. As the sun dipped gently behind the mountains, painting the sky with soft hues of rose and gold, the world seemed to pause for a breath. Shadows stretched tenderly over the fields, and a hush fell across the land. Out of this quiet, the wind arrived, not as a forceful gale, not as the wild drummer that shakes the rooftops, but as a silent visitor. A gentle breeze. Its presence was barely noticeable at first, more felt than seen or heard, carrying the scent of distant rain and faraway places. There was a story in the air, and the world, in its golden stillness, was ready to listen. The wind drifted through the treetops, brushing softly against each leaf, each branch, as if greeting old friends encountered on a familiar path. It moved with purpose, yet with the easy patience of someone who delights in the journey as much as the destination. High above the sleeping earth, nestled at the edge of a slender branch, one small leaf waited. It clung to the branch, the last of its kind, quietly observing the changing world below. The wind found it there, alone but not forlorn, a sentinel keeping watch over the forest's slow transformation. With a tenderness reserved for the rarest of evenings, the wind spoke in a language older than words, letting its breath tickle the edges of the waiting leaf. Its whisper was the kind of sound that could easily be missed by those not attuned to quiet things, but the leaf heard every nuance. "Hello, last leaf of the season," the wind whispered, its voice a melody spun from memory and longing. There was warmth in its tone, as though it recognized a kindred spirit in the little leaf, steadfast and patient, perched at the close of autumn. "I have been away, wandering the world, gathering stories. I have seen fields turned bare and rivers quieting for winter. Would you care to listen to where I have been?" The leaf, which had witnessed many sunsets from its high vantage point, shivered gently in response. It had grown used to its solitary watch, but loneliness had been softened by a deep, persistent curiosity, the desire every leaf has to know what lies beyond the branch. And so it listened. The wind's stories were like music, quiet, wistful, carrying the echoes of places far removed. I have soared over sleeping meadows, the wind murmured, where tufts of grass rest and the earth holds its breath, waiting for the snow to tuck it in. I have traced the winding ribbon of a river, whose waters now move slow and deep, whispering secrets to stones that have seen countless seasons. At dusk, I watched as your brothers and sisters, the leaves of summer, lay on the ground in splendid repose, no longer reaching for the sky but resting on the soft earth, their journey complete. The world does not mourn them. Instead, it honors their return. The wind's words painted pictures in the heart of the leaf. Vistas of wide fields under watchful moons, of gentle rivers reflecting the promise of new dawns. In its imagination, the little leaf saw itself soaring on unseen currents, weightless and unburdened by the need to cling. The thought was not frightening. Instead, it was strangely exhilarating. Winter is near, the wind continued in its soft, patient way. Soon the chill will settle, and the trees will gather themselves into dreams. But do not think this is an ending. When a leaf lets go, it does not vanish. It becomes part of the earth, nourishing roots, preparing for spring's return. You too will become something new, a secret part of the forest's patience and rebirth. The leaf listened, and something stirred within it. A change so subtle it was almost unnoticeable, a softening of the old fear. Through the wind's stories, it glimpsed a larger tapestry, one in which every farewell was also a greeting, every ending a prelude to another beginning. Letting go is not losing, the wind whispered. It is trusting the world to carry you forward, even as you become part of something greater. The days will grow cold, and the nights will lengthen. But in time, warmth and color will return, and the dance will begin anew. The forest remembers every leaf, just as the earth remembers every root. Nothing is truly lost. Everything is transformed. A sense of peace, deeper and more profound than any it had known, filled the little leaf. Where once it had clung out of habit and fear, now it found itself filled with gratitude. For the sun it had drunk, the rain it had absorbed, the wind it now called a friend. Change no longer seemed fearful. The thought of becoming something more, of nourishing the earth and blending into the fabric of life, felt like an honor. The wind, sensing this quiet acceptance, prepared to leave. But before it did, it offered a promise, as soft as the twilight settling over the hills. On the day you are ready, when your heart is light, I will return. I will lift you up, not to keep you, but to help you find the freedom that comes with trust. As the wind faded, slipping quietly toward the deepening dusk, the last leaf stayed, suspended between earth and sky, swaying gently above a world readying itself for rest. The night settled, tranquil and cool, fireflies dancing in the growing gloom. With every passing moment, the leaf felt its fear falling away, replaced by an anticipation as gentle as the wind itself. It now understood something it never had before. The stories the wind carried were not just about places or seasons or endings. They were about becoming, about belonging to something vast and beautiful, a story without end. So the leaf waited in growing stillness, not alone, but part of the great story that the wind had shared. And it was unafraid, knowing that when the time came, it would let go, trusting the wind to carry it onward, certain that every journey leads home. The days shifted slowly, marked by the quiet passage of time and the gentle encroachment of winter. Where once vibrant breezes danced amid the branches, now a hush settled, broken only by the faint rustle of leaves holding fast to their stems. Each morning appeared in a shroud of white mist, clinging to the forest and softening the edges of the world. The air held a bite that deepened with every sunrise, and the sun itself seemed reluctant, climbing only partway into the sky before slipping behind pale veils of cloud, its warmth barely perceptible. The golden rays of autumn, once bold and lively, dwindled to slender beams, more memory than presence, brushing the branch like a departing smile. The leaf, still perched high above the ground, began to notice changes within itself. The cold no longer simply brushed across its surface or nipped gently at its edges. It seeped deeper, urging the leaf to curl inward. But more than the chill, a subtle trembling took hold. This tremor did not come from the air, nor from the shivering of the branch beneath. It came from somewhere quiet and secret inside, the space where thoughts gather and questions are born. Each day, as the fog lifted reluctantly from the earth and the sunlight traced only the faintest outline of the branch, the leaf gazed downward. The forest floor was now clothed in a patchwork quilt of fallen leaves, their hues faded to muted gold, brown, and gray. Some leaves lay motionless atop the cold earth, silvered by the mist. Others curled into themselves, edges crimped by the unrelenting wind. Like gentle sentinels, they seemed at peace, surrendered and still. From above, they appeared silent and unreachable, no longer part of the animated world. The leaf wondered about their journey. Had it been gentle, as the wind once promised? Was the ground soft, welcoming, like in those vibrant dreams of summer? Or did the fall sting with a sharpness the leaf had never imagined? The questions hung in the air, heavy with possibility and unspoken fear. The leaf considered its place upon the branch, a world unto itself. It had watched the rhythm of autumn unfold, seen squirrels scamper and leap, their fluffy tails flickering in the morning light. It had listened to the autumn birds as they sang their last songs, then taken wing to distant, warmer homes. It had witnessed the forest hush as days shortened, the grass press low to the earth, and mushrooms unfurl in shadowy corners. There had been the final rainfall of the season, soft drops tapping a lullaby on every leaf and twig. It had greeted the moon bright and shy as it waxed and waned overhead, months slipping by in the silver night. Home had become the crook of this branch, sturdy and ever-present. The wind, when it came, was familiar, a friend's passing hand, gentle or wild depending on its mood. The sun's warmth, the constancy of birdsong, the thrum of rain and hush of moonlight, these had shaped the leaf's days, rooted it to this one moment in the rhythm of the world. To leave behind the sweep of the sky, the sway of the branch, the chorus of the woods, and the gentle, reliable beat of the forest's heart, that was not an idea the leaf could embrace lightly. At night, as the darkness spilled across the land and the cold pressed relentlessly, the leaf did not dream as it once had. There were no longer flights of fancy where it soared on gusts of wind or drifted effortlessly into the sky. Instead, there was stillness. It lay awake, half listening, half afraid, sensing the distant rustle of the wind somewhere far away, a call it could not respond to, not now. The invitation to let go, to trust, to fall gently, was always lingering in the background. Yet, the timid voice that quivered inside only whispered, "Perhaps I am not ready." Or, in the most private moments, a more honest confession, "Maybe I am afraid." And the leaf realized what it had not before. Its fear was not so much of the descent, nor the hard ground waiting below. Its fear grew from the thought of parting, from losing the sights and sounds and feelings that had come to define its world. To leave behind the skin-tingling touch of the morning breeze, the shimmering light glancing off its surface, and the sense of belonging to something greater. Change was frightening not because of what awaited, but because of what had to be relinquished. With every cold dawn, the leaf felt itself shrink just a little more, curling to preserve the last remnants of warmth, clinging to what remained of the once resplendent green. Time seemed to move differently now. It slowed, elongated, as if the world itself was reluctant to move forward. The leaf felt the swoop of hesitation. Was it capable of letting go? Would it find the courage if the wind lured it onward again? Yet in that pause, in the very heart of its hesitation, something subtle began to shift. The fear did not vanish. It lingered, persistent as the frost. But it was joined by something softer, an attentiveness, a gentle waiting, a patience that was almost hope. The leaf found itself listening more closely, both to the world around and, more importantly, to itself. It heard the stories that passed through the forest, carried in the hush of the trees. It heard the stillness of the air and the faint chorus of roots deep beneath the earth. Most of all, it heard the quiet beating of its own pulse, the yearning to understand what it truly wanted, and the realization that change would come in its own time. So the leaf clung to the branch through the cold, trembling not just with fear, but with the wonder that comes from standing at the edge between what has been and what is coming. It waited beneath the pale autumn sky, shrinking into itself, yet growing in patience and understanding, learning to listen to its own desires. And as the forest slept beneath veils of mist, the leaf knew that someday, when the time was right, courage would arrive, not in the absence of fear, but hand in hand with it, as gentle as the wind's invitation, as silent and certain as the approach of winter. One misty morning, as the sun barely touched the treetops, the entire forest was wrapped in anticipation. Everywhere, a gentle hush prevailed, a soft, patient silence that seemed almost sacred. The songs of birds had faded as they set out for warmer places, and the restless winds that once stirred the leaves into a golden dance had subsided into stillness. Twigs and trunks, mosses and mushrooms, all appeared to share an unspoken understanding, pausing together at the threshold of a new season. The world was poised, breathing as one, waiting for something to change. Not something grand, not an event that would echo through the forest for years to come, but something small, something deeply meaningful in its quiet way. High above, on a branch etched dark against the dim morning, a single leaf clung to its perch. It held fast, not from fear, but because holding was what it knew. All through the lively days of spring and the golden laughter of autumn, the leaf had shimmered and swayed, one among many, part of a green and then golden canopy. Now, all around it, branches had shed their other leaves, left bare against the sky. Yet this one leaf remained, bound to its branch by habit and by lingering dreams, bound by the invisible threads that connect us to what is familiar, what is loved, even as change waits patiently in the wings. But on this morning, under the soft, enveloping mist, the air felt different. There was no chill, no weight pressing down. Instead, a delicate buoyancy seemed to fill the space between each tree, each blade of grass. The leaf sensed it, deep within the thin veins of its body, like a whisper long held in the heart. A gentle reminder that after so much stillness, something was coming. Not a storm, not a reckoning, but a moment of grace. It was then that the wind arrived. Unlike the exuberant gusts of earlier days, this wind did not make the branches creak or scatter the last bits of color across the forest floor. No, this wind was subtle, almost shy, a caress rather than a command, as if the world itself was reaching out with a gentle hand, offering comfort rather than urging action. Other leaves might have been startled, might have held tighter, but not this one. The leaf was ready. Throughout the long season, it had watched its neighbors let go, carried off on hurried breezes and heavy rains. At first, a flicker of apprehension had passed through it. When would its own moment come? Would it hurt? Would it be lonely? But as days became weeks, the leaf had come to understand that there is a time for every possibility, a chosen hour hidden like a pearl deep inside the rhythms of the world. Now in this moment there was no fear. The leaf knew with the certainty of the sunrise that its time had come. And so it smiled, a tiny, unseen curve of spirit, invisible to all but itself, and released its hold. The letting go was not dramatic. There was no sharp snap or lingering regret. Instead, the stem softened. The leaf drifted, buoyed by the gentlest breath of air, turning once as if to glance back at the sky it had known for so long. Its fall was beautiful, slow, deliberate, filled with an extraordinary calm. For the first time, the leaf felt what it truly meant to be free, not bound to a branch or fear, but carried wherever the world meant it to go. As it floated downward, the morning light grew around it, filtering through the lingering mist in silvery rays. Beneath the leaf, the forest floor seemed to open its arms, a patchwork of moss, earth, and old leaves waiting to cradle it. Each moment of descent brought a sense of release. The leaf could feel the old doubts and dreams it had clung to falling away, giving way to a kind of peace that was deeper than the hush of the forest itself. It thought of the sunny days it had basked in, the cool nights, the laughter of squirrels darting above and below. It cherished all those memories, but it did not dwell on them. The season had changed, and so had the leaf. When it finally came to rest upon the forest floor, there was no sound, no trembling shudder or feeling of loss. The earth underneath was soft, gentle as promised. It wrapped the leaf like an old friend, as comforting as a warm blanket in the depths of winter. There were no eyes upon this moment, no applause, no tearful goodbyes. The world did not pause for this tiny, quiet act. But for the leaf, something wondrous was beginning, a miracle invisible to any but itself. The leaf did not vanish. It did not become nothing, lost to the cold ground. Instead, a new journey began. The earth welcomed it, drawing into itself all that the leaf had been. The sunlight caught in its cells, the rainwater it had sipped, the living green that had coursed through every fiber. Bit by bit, the leaf melted into the soil, becoming nourishment for roots hidden far below where it lay. In this way, it was not ending, but giving strength to the tree that had once held it, weaving its story into the roots, the trunk, and someday into new leaves rising with the spring. Time would pass. Winter would curl the forest into sleep. Snow might smooth the ground, and when spring returned, the world would stir awake. Perhaps from the very place where the leaf had fallen, a tender green shoot would stretch upward, filled with all the hope and promise of new beginnings. The leaf's journey had never truly been about leaving. It was always about returning, about fulfilling the dream it had carried through every season. All season, the leaf had dreamed of falling. It had wondered what it would mean and how it would feel. Now, as it belonged entirely to the forest once more, it understood. Falling is not the end, but another way of belonging. The dream had never been about departure. It was always about coming home, quietly, gracefully, and exactly in its own time. Thank you everyone for your interest. Please like and subscribe to the channel to receive notifications of more stories.